The year 2020 was like the big bang of chaos, crisis, and rapid change. It was a massive wake-up call. The way we used to do life is no longer working.
Has the world gone crazy?
Everything's hitting us at once.
It's so overwhelming.
Unpredictable. Exhausting.
What is this?
I wish somebody had some answers.
The first thing you need to do is give it a name.
All of the stuff that we're going through, and all of us are going through it right now, it has a name, and it's called VUCA.
It's VUCA.
What's VUCA? It's a little-known military secret that explains where we are today, and it will change how you see the world.
We are in a VUCA world now, and it is accelerating. The future is moving faster and faster, faster than we think.
When things are accelerating very quickly, when we're in VUCA conditions, the old story, the old solution isn't going to work, where the opportunities and the possibilities are not where we would normally look for them.
We needed a master guide to surviving and thriving in the 21st century. So my plan was to unpack this VUCA, find the greatest modern mentors and sages of VUCA, like generals, warrior philosophers, best-selling VUCA thought leaders, scientists, therapists, to help us find the light at the end of the tunnel, the antidote to negative VUCA.
The VUCA world can be flipped from negative, flipped in a positive way.
It's critical to flip the script on VUCA so you can unlock your unlimited potential and achieve the biggest dreams of your life.
We found when we examined what's going to happen over the next 10 years, 100 years worth of technological change. It means every major industry on Earth is going to be reinvented over the next 10 years. It means there's more opportunity for people who can master these VUCA conditions than ever before.
Wealth will double in the next 10 years. So there's also a lot of possibility inside this VUCA world.
This quest totally changed my life and my family. VUCA became my North Star. I thought differently about everything. And I wanted to share my unimaginable life-changing discoveries with you and your children and their children, and essentially the world.
We're going to tell you how to tackle the impossible and thrive in the 21st century, even in the worst VUCA conditions.
This is the secret to living in the 21st century.
Alrighty, everybody. I am sitting here with the co-executive producer of the incredible film, It's VUCA. You all just saw the trailer to it. Michael Schindler. Michael, thank you so much for being here today.
No, it's such an honor to be here with you, Jason. I mean, you're accomplished in your own right. To be sitting here just having this conversation is going to be a total treat. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And likewise with everything that you've done. I mean, It's VUCA is a film that's pretty much everywhere. It's available on iTunes, Vimeo, Google Play, Xbox, Prime Video, Vudu, and now Unified TV as well for anybody who wants to watch the entire film and really see the eye-opening concepts and the eye-opening information that it brings to the table. So before we get to this film and what it's all about, Michael, can you tell us a little bit more about you? What's your background? What brought you to where you're at today?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm third generation Navy, so loving this country has been pretty ingrained in me. How I got here today. The beautiful thing about the military, I think that people don't quite understand, is when you're young, you're kind of searching. You're in that search mode. Like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? I thought it was going to be Perry Mason, Jason. I mean, that's for your audience that doesn't know who that is. He was like this big time lawyer, on TV that accomplished and won like almost every case. And it was a little known film that came out in '86 called Top Gun. And that was my gateway into the Navy, essentially. And the military is really good at assigning mission, purpose, identity, right? Something that you talk a lot about, kind of your awakening. And when I got out, all that was stripped. And so I went on this journey to figure out who I was. Got into startups and wrote, 2 highly acclaimed books and started a national nonprofit to really work on mission, purpose, identity. And then I met Chris Nolan about 5 years ago, and we were working on a different documentary. And when the whole world changed a couple of years back, he's the one that essentially said, hey, we got to do it on this amazing film. And I looked at my wife and daughters, my wife for 26 years, my daughters, And I said, hey, we're going to do a movie. And they're like, what are we doing? Are you kidding? Oh, what? And I told them like the day before the film crew showed up because I didn't want them to freak out. So
Wow.
yeah.
So with everything in this film, let's first talk about this word. It's VUCA.
Yeah.
What's VUCA? I'm sure most people have never heard about that in their lives. So, bring that to everybody on this today and have us understand what it is that's being covered in this film and why it's a must watch.
Yeah, sure. So VUCA, I think we all know it, but we've just not known it by that term. We see the bumper stickers on the back of cars that say S happens, right? That's kind of VUCA. VUCA originated in the late 80s. Two major thought leaders had approached the military when the Soviet Union was falling. The Army War College kind of adopted it and said, boy, this is an interesting time. It's very volatile. It's uncertain. It's complex. It's ambiguous. VUCA, right? The military loves acronyms. And, who hasn't lived these conditions in the past couple of years, right? The world was normal, as people like to say, hey, it's normal. We got our routines. And then the whole world flipped upside down and everybody's life changed. And those of us that serve in the military, we kind of went, well, now you know what it's like to serve in the military. Like you have two types of plans that might work and plans that don't work. We've lived that life. The rest of the world kind of went status quo until a couple of years ago. And so VUCA is really that. It's the external pressures of life that impact people, right? Everybody's been living it. They just haven't known that's what it's called. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. What's cool about this, though, is how you combat VUCA is with VUCA. You know how our brains work. Like we like to know, okay, I'm in a chaotic moment, but how do I get out of the chaotic moment, right? And that's where people get stuck, is they focus on the negative, right? And we said, yeah, but how you combat VUCA is with VUCA, which is vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. So when the external forces hit you in the face, which they will, right? They'll always hit you in the face. The goal was, how do we teach people the heuristics, the brain hacks, that suddenly when you have that negative moment, you go, wait a second, but how do I gain vision out of this? I need to understand my situation. When I understand it, I get clarity, and then I know I need to adapt my plan, right? So the whole goal was to help the world essentially get unstuck and tell it through story form, because people love story.
I think this is probably the most important time that something like this needs to come out, because everything that's been happening over the past 3 years puts us in that state where we probably need VUCA now more than ever, right?
100%.
So my question for you is, first of all, I love the concept and I love applying that concept and putting it into reality. Can you give a situation of, if you can actually give an example of a situation, how you would apply VUCA? What does it actually look like? And I ask you to do that because there are a lot of times where we speak about things broadly, and then you give one example, everybody's like, oh my God, okay, so that translates to this in my life and this in my life. So I want to give as much as we can to the people listening to this. And of course, you're going to gain a whole lot more when you actually watch the film. And I know that you guys offer coaching sessions as well, according to all of that, which we'll speak about. So if you can give an example of what that actually looks like hands-on, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost pick any scenario, okay? But let's talk about today, right? I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty around the war, with Ukraine and Russia and inflation and jobs, like the tech sector's laying off, right? Like these are VUCA moments, right? These are negative VUCA moments, right? People losing their jobs. Okay, so let's say you've got, you got a high paying, like I'm in the Seattle area, so the tech sector jobs are about 300,000, and all of a sudden, you got a company that says, hey, we're laying off 10,000 people. What? Right? This is insane. Like, no way. I thought my job was secure forever. And now suddenly you've got a whole lifestyle built on 300,000. So what happens is most people focus on the negative. Oh my God, look at all the stuff I'm losing, right? Now, and they get caught up in this freak out moment. Okay. What we do, like in the military, there are a lot of freak out moments, right? Because your plan changed. And that's where I'm saying that life is going to throw you curveballs. Your plan is going to change. So how do you develop this flip the script mentality? When that happens, the goal is to trigger your brain into a solution mindset. I know we hear it all the time. Okay. But I'll give you a case in point.
Okay.
Working with an individual who's going through that similar scenario. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just stop and pause for a moment. So that's the first thing. Okay, it's how you apply VUCA, is you pause. Okay, you just pause, you breathe. Okay, no, you know this, Jason. When you breathe, suddenly when you start to do 2 breaths in, 1 breath out, you begin to reset your system, right? You do this a lot in the military. So you begin to reset your system. You begin to think, okay, I've got a negative situation. What is my vision? What is it I really want? Where do I want to go? Okay, makes sense? I'm looking for the pathway. I've got to see that pathway.
Yep.
So with this individual, I just said, okay, great. We know what we're faced with. That's good. We've named it.
Okay.
Okay. Like General Casey says in the film, first you have to name it. Well, we've named it. Okay. You're losing everything. Now we've named it. Now we know how to address it. Now, where do we need to go? What's our vision? Well, my vision has a stable family. My vision. Okay, great. Okay. So let's understand our situation. What's our time frame?
Mm-hmm.
Make sense? See how I'm just boiling it down?
Yep.
Okay.
This is the military mindset that you can actually use. You know, when people hear military mindset, they're like, oh, it's too logical. But there's a place for logic and reason also.
Yeah.
And when you integrate that with your spiritual essence, you become, you know, Iron Man. It's limitless at that point. So
Oh my gosh.
I welcome this so much. I love it because it gives steps. Everybody's looking for steps. So please keep going.
Yeah. So it really is. First is awareness. Like I give your audience like 4 steps. Okay. Like the first is awareness. What's the awareness of my situation? Okay. The whole world's falling apart. Okay. Okay. So now I'm aware that my world's falling apart. Now I need to do an assessment. How do I feel in this situation? Well, I'm freaking out. I need to figure out what I need to do. Maybe I need to get mentorship. I got to make some phone calls, right? I have to do an assessment of who am I in this environment? Okay. Now I got to take action. Okay. That's the key. Now I got to act. Most people freak out. And what do? They isolate. Like if you look at the studies, like the whole world's freaking out right now. Like 80% of the population's like on edge.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, well, wait a second, you can be aware of that, understand that you're on edge, but now you got to take action. How are you gonna move through it? Or are you just going to be a target for negative VUCA, right? Because people get consumed by it, right? So now you got to take action, and then you have to have accountability, meaning you got to get mentorship, or you got to have somebody that you can talk to through this situation. Because we might say military mindset, and to your point, Jason, some people will say, oh, you guys are just so logical. Well, no, we're pretty emotional. But we also know that we have to manage our emotions, right? Because if we react as opposed to respond, the environment's totally different.
Gotcha.
Reaction is driven by emotion, which means that sometimes that's not the proper reaction, right? How many, you know people that are married, right? I'm married. Like I have reacted sometimes to my wife, not a good thing.
No. And I always speak about the difference between reacting and responding, where when you're reacting, you're throwing the energy back that came at you. That doesn't really transmute or change.
Right.
When you respond, you take it, you process it, you alchemize it into something else that's probably more productive, and then you get right. That changes.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So those are really the practical tactical steps, is when, hey, listen, you know what, my bank account isn't what it used to be. I no longer have my job, or maybe I'm experiencing some other crisis or environment. Okay, great. Well, first I need to breathe. I call it the 60-second life changer. Mm-hmm. Okay, if your audience really wants to know, how do I start this whole thing? You can change your life in 60 seconds. Okay, you do that. Our moms taught us that. I don't know, Jason, maybe your mom wasn't like my mom, but my mom, if I screwed things up, she'd look at me with that mom glare, right? And she'd be like, give me a minute. And I knew, like, okay, my whole life could change in a minute right about now, right? That's what we need to do here, is like, okay, just take 60 seconds and let's breathe through this. And let's create a vision of where I need to go and how I'm going to get through this, right? That's the positive VUCA piece. When VUCA smacks you in the face, negative VUCA, external VUCA, control the controllables, which is the positive VUCA, the vision, understanding, clarity, adaptability. I can control those. Can't control the negative stuff. Yeah. I can plan for it, but it's always unexpected, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Where do you see that? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. How do you see and you kind of answered this already. I'm asking this purposely for an even more direct answer with this audience and this community that's watching this as well. How do you see the spiritual component and the spiritual essence of this all coming into it? because I know some people, when they hear military mindset, they're like, oh no, that's, they just resist it off the bat.
Yeah.
Again, I can't stress it enough. There is a time and place for everything. There's a time and place for structure and processes to be able to get through something. But at the same time, if we do what you just said, sort of robotic, and it becomes robotic without truly feeling and without truly going within ourselves, and we're just like, okay, take 60 seconds to pause. I paused for 60 seconds. It's next. Then maybe we're losing an essence of it. So where does the spiritual component and spiritual essence come to that? Call it like the VUCA method.
Yeah, I would say it's core to it. So one of the things we talk about in the film is we talk about vertical learning and we talk about horizontal learning, right? So I did that backwards, but you do vertical learning and horizontal learning, right? Horizontal learning is skill set. It's the steps that people want. Well, just tell me the steps. What do I need to do, right? Like, how do I be, how do I do something better? All that is horizontal learning. Where true breakthrough happens, Jason, is in the vertical learning. Okay, we talk about this in the film. Okay, that's an awareness of something greater than you. Okay, it is critical to the positive side of VUCA, because I believe that vision is given to you by a higher power.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are on this life, like, those who follow the Christian faith, God, they're always like, hey, our goal is to get to heaven. I'm like, what? If God's goal was only to get you to heaven, he'd have you born one day and take you home the next, right? So, okay, that's your ultimate destination. That's the goal. But he's got a reason you're here. So the reason you're here is to discover how you're going to make an impact and difference. This is part of the life. This is part of the learning piece, right? Mm-hmm. So the spiritual piece is critical. Okay, you'll see a thread of that in the film. Throughout the entire film, it's there. We call it vertical awareness. Okay, because when you are aware, okay, all of a sudden, this is where I say when the vision is big, the circumstances don't matter. Well, how can I confidently say that? Well, because when you understand the vision, you understand that there's got to be, why did you ever think bad things wouldn't happen? Right? Because it's part of it. Yeah. Now, if you're part of the Christian faith, the beautiful thing is God turns it all for good. Well, even the bad stuff, right? So now you're like, well, if it's bad, eventually it'll turn good. It's a different mindset. People going, wow, that's kind of, cavalier. It's not really. It's just an understanding that knowing that I'm here for a greater purpose. Yep. There's breakthrough when that happens.
Michael, I know VUCA has changed a lot of people's lives. I know that there's coaching involved with VUCA. If anybody wants to, take that up and learn more about it after watching the film, and I'll share your website below this video as well for everybody to be able to check that out and learn more about this. But with the amount of people that this has helped, from your personal experience and what you've seen, obviously without sharing names or identity or anything like that, are there any experiences that you can share that you've seen in extreme cases, somebody going from an extreme case to really getting through it through, using this?
100%. I'll just kind of paint the scenario. Okay, this typically, when we do the training, we're working with, either CEOs or executive senior experienced coaches, things along that line, right? People that know how to operate with people, lead teams, etc. And what we do is we just give them another framework from which to provide their teams, right, to help their teams grow. Okay, because typically that's what they're looking for. But when individuals go through this, what is so cool about this, Jason, is when an individual goes through it and suddenly they realize why they're here. Okay, that's the cool piece. Like, somebody will watch the film and they'll say, okay, I got to do this. And if we certify somebody, they have to show us where they're actually going to make money. Does it make sense? So we're interesting when it comes to this. We're not like, hey, just pay us a lot of money. We're like, no, you have to qualify and you have to show us where you're actually going to get a return and how you're going to impact the world. Because my vision is to impact 100 million people. Okay. And I can only do that through other people who are leading people. But when an individual came to us, there was an individual that came to us and he was struggling. I will tell you, he was, there's a term we use in the military. I won't use the term here because it can probably freak people out, but let's just say he was in a very dark place. Okay. As a matter of fact, sprawled out, we would do bed checks on the guy. Okay, we just walk into his house, find him just sprawled out on his room, drinking way too much. He was in a dark place. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Worked with him. People love entertainment. The film is not just a bunch of 17 talking heads of experts. It's got never before seen footage on real life experiences where people applied the principle to get out and change the world. There's a 9/11 story that people, when they watch it, they are floored by it. They're like, I never knew this. And I went, I know. And that's one man's decision that impacted 500,000 people.
That's so powerful.
In a positive way,
yeah.
Right? And so when they see this, they're like, that's what I want. This individual watched the film, entertained. How do I turn my life around? Long story short, we walked with him. And this individual then got back into school. He's now learning a trade. He's no longer drinking, right? And there's nothing against drinking. I'm just saying manage it, right? But he's got his life back under control. He'll send me text messages like, dude, you saved my life. Wow. Now, there's no amount of money that somebody could pay me for a response like that, right? As a matter of fact, I didn't even charge the guy. And I don't want to put it out there that I'll work with the whole world for nothing, but there are cases where I'm just like, hey, listen, you know what? You're an impact player. We'll get your life turned around. That's what happened when people understand, okay, I need to move. I need to flip the negative script that I'm playing in my head. I'm a loser. I'm not capable. I can't believe I'm losing my job. I don't even know who I am. What am I doing here? My relationship isn't working, right? You hear these conversations, just like I hear them.
Yeah.
And the goal is to get people to flip that script and go, yes, all that is probably true. Okay, that's probably your truth right now. Okay, but what's your vision? I don't know my vision. Okay, let's figure that out.
So it's really focusing on what needs to be focused. I see it as like a manifesting form of
it is. Yeah.
You're teaching people in a very unique way. How do you use the powers within you through, visualization, for example, and your own internal visions to manifest what it is that you want to experience. Acknowledge where you're at, like you said, acknowledge where you're at. Now, where do you want to go? And how do you get there?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I've taught multiple workshops in different ways, of course, with different terminology, but I'm seeing the synchronicities now of this is a teaching mechanism of manifesting from within.
It really is, and putting practicality around it, right? I mean, The Secret, when the movie The Secret came out, I think it was 2006. When that came out, it was about the law of attraction, right? And a lot of people just sat back and went, okay, well, I'm trying to attract it. And I'm like, well, right, that's a component, but you actually have to put action into it, right? So you've got to visualize it. You've got to be aware, you've got to visualize it. And when you begin to have this new energy around you, it's amazing what you will attract. No question. But now you have to act on it, right? Yeah. You can't just sit on the couch and go, okay, my life's got to be worth, millions of dollars. It's like, oh no, you got to go out and put some action behind it. I mean, I'd love to sit on a combat field.
Yeah, I've seen that in action. I've seen that in action in my own personal life, where on both for the positive and the negative, on where I wanted to go and where I didn't want to go, based on what I desired and the actions that I took next, or the inaction that I didn't take. And it's inspiring to be able to see on others and with yourself, because it really shows you that there's nothing that's impossible. You can do whatever you need to do. You just need to change your mindset around it. And I guess that's what VUCA is really doing.
It really is. That's a great way to put it. Impossible is only impossible until somebody proves it's not.
Yeah, I don't believe in impossible. I think that's a stupid word.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think there's things that we have to learn to overcome, right, to get there. But nothing's impossible. I mean, it's you think about this. My dad used to say this. He goes, Mike, you'll drive the car where your eyes are focused, right? Remember that? when we were learning how to drive, and I'd be like, if you're looking at the headlights of the other car, you're probably going to drive into the other car. That's why you want to look at the white light, right? You're the white line along the side of the road. That's the same principle here. Is a lot of people just focus on the negative. So they're always looking at the negative stuff in their life, and they're wondering, why am I attracting more negative? Why is my life spiraling out of control? Why is it? Well, where are you focused? Right? Focus where you want to go. 100%. When the vision is big, the circumstances don't matter as much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Michael, before we sum up this interview, is there my actual main question to ask you is what would you like for viewers of this film to take from this film? If they didn't take anything else, what is your vision, your wish for anybody that watches this to take with them after watching the film?
Yeah, that they're here for a reason. 100%. That they're not a mistake. They're here for a reason. So when they watch the film, I want them to listen to that little still small voice that's inside of them that's going, man, I've always wanted to do X. And I'm saying, okay, then go do it. Let's go do it. Let's go make that happen, because that's probably the core. So you're not here by mistake.
Great. I love it. Well, Michael, I want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. And, maybe down the line, we can do more of these interviews. I really like your energy. I think that you bring something very valuable to the table. I think that just by people listening to you, because I could feel, energetically speaking, at least, you're very successful and you have a very successful energy also. And I always tell everybody, you are what you eat, you are what you listen to, you are who you listen to, you are who you speak to, you are your friends, you are your surroundings, and that creates that vibration of being that radiates and creates that reality. So I genuinely believe that the more that we can hear from you, the more productive people can be just by listening to it, because it will change their internal reality as well. So if we can do something down the line, that would be awesome. And I'd love to.
Oh, I'd love it, Jason. Listen, you're accomplished in your own right. I've followed you. I've seen your work. It's so interesting how you're really tapped into that vertical awareness piece. And that's where breakthrough happens. I mean, it tremendously happens there. People get so caught up in just the easy button, the skills. And I'm like, the skills are part of it, but the vertical piece is critical. So I'm a big fan of your work. So
thank you. And likewise, this film is amazing. I encourage everybody to go watch it. Again, it's available on many platforms: iTunes, Vimeo, Google Play, Xbox, Prime Video, Vudu, and now it is available on Unified TV as well. So if you are a member, make sure to check it out. If you're not, there's a link in the description below for you to sign up and check out this video among everything else that's on that platform as well. Also, if you go to itsvuca.com, it's VUCA.com, you'll be able to check some stuff out over there, see the coaches program, and take it from there. See where it takes you, see what resonates, and move forward accordingly. So again, Michael, thank you for your time and thank you for your work in this world. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody that's watching this right now. Make sure to share this as far and wide as possible. You never know who VUCA can help and how VUCA can help them. So bring this to their awareness, and everybody will do what they do when it comes into their awareness. So again, thank you everybody for being here. And Michael, thank you for your time and your work.
Yeah, honored. Thank you, Jason.